BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today we have Vincent, Northzone's Director of Marketing and Communications, on the show. Vincent's career in tech started in 2011 when he was still in school running a podcast about digital policies. Vincent then worked as an independent marketing consultant in the tech events industries. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, we have Vincent now joining us on the Dear BAM podcast. Hi Vincent.
Hi Beck, I'm so glad I'm here today.
Yes, where are you recording this from in our quarantine time?
So I'm calling from London.
Lovely London. Do you have a good view? Is there anything you can see right now?
Yes, I'm pretty lucky because London is not a packed city, so we do have like amazing views and parks, which is a nice race right now.
It is nice. Glad to hear you're well in London. Let's dive into our hairy batch of questions we got for this week. So here we go. Dear Banff, I've been recently hired, pre-COVID, thank goodness, to head marketing at a startup. We've recently raised a Series B funding round. Part of my mandate when I got here was to drive a plan on all the people, tools, etc. that I would need to really take us to the next level. I'm already getting pushback from the co-founders on my recommendations to bring in some external agencies to help with SEO and PR. One said to me, quote, "Well, isn't that your job to do?" I'm feeling a bit trapped and concerned that the leadership doesn't get that I can't do all the mandates they want me to do: digital marketing, content, SEM, PR, social, events, etc. Thoughts on how to navigate this? What would you say, Vincent?
Well, I guess that's business as usual for an in-house person.
Yes.
First. So actually, first thing I think is to define your strategy based on your observation, your experience, and gut feeling. Like defining this strategy means involving the founder you report to, the co-founders, and people that are in the leadership team. But my advice will really be to define a clear strategy that you can present in front of this leadership group. And most importantly, defining with them your priorities. I have the feeling that you cannot really educate them right now about the role itself, because of course you cannot do everything, but you can save time by saying, of course, we'll do them all, but here, what's important for our business right now, 1, 2, 3. So you're definitely not a PR agency and you don't want to over deliver right now, so they don't want to upgrade your budget later. So actually, a tip that I give a lot to CMOs and all marketing people within our portfolio. Usually, they are either the first marketing hire or like this kind of role. It's really communicate about the time you spend on each of those tasks. Like getting in touch with these key journalists will take you 2 days. So is defining a CEO strategy. So what is critical for the business right now? But that being said, and Beck, I'm sure you know the feeling. Everyone thinks that they can do your job when you work in marketing. It's like a chronic issue. I don't have a clear explanation for this.
It's very true. Yes.
But it's just that people have their own social media and consume so much messaging themselves that they believe they are expertise. Beck, actually, do you have an idea of why people act like this?
Do I? Unfortunately, and this is the reason why we started this podcast, is because a perception, perhaps at least on like the tech persona or founder perspective, is that, oh, it's not rocket science. Like it's not something that you have to have a master's in to necessarily do. It's not like data processing, AI algorithms, things of this sort. But in fact, it is very much an art, and it's an evolving art. It does take a lot of time. You can't just snap your fingers and suddenly you're in the Wall Street Journal or you're in Wired magazine or any of these publications, or you're the first page view on a Google search. You have 10,000 plus followers on your Instagram. Like things take time. And I'd say for this person who wrote in the question, very typical situation. And we see it, Vincent, with the comms people at funds themselves, where from their partners, it's just like, oh, well, can't you run the whole portfolio's events and run community? And, oh, by the way, get me into the Wall Street Journal and, oh, set me up with all these awards. Also do the PR for the portfolio companies. There seems to be like a critical lack of understanding across the board of the amount of time all these roles take.
Yeah, and you know what I found out also over time is that being very, very good and at least like even chirurgical about something at something is super important, because then you can be like, guys, I'm more communication person, I'm more marketing person, and this is how you kind of like navigate comms with me or marketing with me.
Yeah, I think that's also a critical distinction, is that all this expertise is not in one person. They might have a very broad overview of like, oh yeah, SEO, but the same person who's going to land you in an article in Fortune is probably not the same person who's going to be able to get you on number one page on Google, for instance. So these are segmented, specific functions that unfortunately, again, get kind of lumped into an all role type of thing. So I think really the answer to this one is to sit down with these two co-founders or however many they are and say, okay, here's the full entire stack of everything you want to do. And to do A, B, C, D, E, and F, how much time does A take? How much time does B take? How much time does C take? Lay it all out. And then be able to say, well, guys, that's 280 hours a month. Hopefully this person writing in is like, and that's for a really good, efficient person, which hopefully this writer is. So it's not possible. It's not possible. So from like a time perspective and then the expertise perspective, I think that's how you navigate this, especially if you can put like hard numerical information on the page. Put it on a spreadsheet.
I agree.
Okay, so let's get into our next question here. Dear Bamf, I have a good background in media relations and communication thanks to my previous 4 years at an agency. Now I'm internal at a startup. It's a SaaS B2B focus in fintech that received funding about 6 months ago. After a pop of media for our funding, nothing else has happened on the media landscape front. I'd like to see that change and could push some ideas or at least thought leadership out. My boss, our CMO, says coverage is, quote, just not a priority right now. What do you think, and how would you handle this?
This is exactly the other side of the coin. Actually, a friend of mine recently told me that we often say that marketers put customers at the center of their strategy, but actually it's not true. And what he was saying to me is that they actually need to put their boss at the center. Like a marketer's job is mainly about building trust internally in order to suggest tactics that will work. So to go back to the question, I totally understand the frustration that you have, especially if you have all the contacts and knowledge to help your company in getting coverage. But you also want to last in this company and have an impact. So my advice would be to forget about PR right now. If your CMO feels that's the best things to do right now, work on your internal relationship and make your CMO buy this, basically. You are a comms person, that this is your background. So I will say that it's actually an opportunity today to kind of like create your own channel and content that would be a game changer in the long term. Like data about your customer behaviors, interviews of the clients. PR coverage is never something that you will own from a business standpoint. So, and don't get me wrong back here. Like, I know that PR is a PR weapon and I use PR a lot and I do a lot of PR, but right now I totally understand the CMO's kind of like idea of like saying that coverage is not just a priority right now. You kind of want to cut intermediaries and talk to your customers directly. So I just have 3 pieces of advice on this.
Go ahead.
First, be authentic now more than ever and engage directly with your customer. I would say that if major network anchors are delivering the news from their living room, you can definitely pitch your own stories on your own channel. Secondly, invest in your tone. And it's harder than it sounds to set up the tone. Be human as opposed to facts. Because my take on this is that companies' values matter more now than ever. There is a lot of scrutiny about how companies are handling, following people or just like mental health of their own employee. So make it personal. Make the CEO speak himself about the company, about the business. Zoom is a good example of, good practices on this. Like they did a mistake on security. The CEO spoke himself. He apologized. It was amazing. It was very personal. And my last piece of advice to this person that is kind of like navigating through the politics of a CMO like this is really invest in relationship that will make you even more successful in the future. So that's maybe this journalist that you don't know, or that's maybe this other key opinion leader that you don't know already.
Yeah, I like that third piece. You tee yourself up for success now. Get those relationships going. You're saying here, and this person writing in says, they had previous agency experience, so I'm assuming they're coming in with a bunch of contacts, that type of thing. But who do you not know? Because you don't have to execute, and what a great opportunity to build those relationships, not asking them for pitches, not asking them for coverage, not sending a pitch, but just like, hey, let me, can we hop on a phone, educate what's going on? Here's my perspective. What are you looking for? How can I be of help? Establishing those relationships where you're not asking for anything. You just want to be a resource.
And like give, don't sell.
Exactly. The other contrarian thing I would say, but now I'm kind of doubting it. Well, okay, I think it's going to be a little bit of a hybrid. So to your point of making those relationships right now, why not go to your current relationships and don't pursue, again, don't ask for coverage, anything like that, but just be like, hey, just checking in, what's going on? How can I be of service? So just build up that goodwill and be of service, because then, as what we probably see in startups all the time, when the tide suddenly changes and it's like, oh, actually now it's going to be a priority of media coverage, you're going to not be on the back foot, because you're going to be able to go like, oh, great. Yeah, I've already been in touch with 40 journalists in the last 6 months waiting for this moment to happen. And there you will. And then you'll be a superstar too with that. I think that's great.
Definitely. And you also, as I said, like really want to be authentic. So even if you go to a journalist, or even if you go to a key opinion leader or one of your customers and saying, well, I have nothing to sell right now, but I just want to check in, making it human is super powerful.
Keep it real. Yes. Okay. Let's read our next question. Dear Banff, horrible timing, of course, but we have a significant launch coming up in Q3. It's taken our team 2 years to develop our product, and for our industry, it's going to be a rather big deal. I head the PR at our startup. Advice on pitching this launch amid COVID? I know things are changing every week in the media landscape, but I'd hate to downplay any planning while my team has been ramping for this mega moment. Ooh, Vincent, what would you say?
That's a very hard one. But actually, I do have some lunches that I'm doing with companies right now. So everyone wants good news right now.
Of course.
So I do have exposure to US and European journalists, and they all want to write about something different than COVID. Like, it's like, of course they want to like you to pitch different stories, but the reality is that their editors are asking them to write about it. So they have a lot of pressure for sure. And what I find very interesting right now is also this whole new kind of like way to interacting with journalists, where you ask them who is the best person to reach out within their media if they cannot cover for X, Y, Z reasons. So be transparent about the fact that you've worked on this product launch for 2 years. Like, it means something. Make the team behind the product available and ask them to share crunchy details on how they've got there. Yeah, like, journalists need stories right now. But another angle that I will try in your case will be actually this narrative, like launching a product, game changing for your industry, but during a pandemic. I know it's like it's going all in the pandemic COVID thing, but still that could work. And I'm pretty sure that, journalists will pick this up if they were right on your industry.
Yeah, I think there's a definite chance of this. So this poor writer is like, oh, horrible timing. I like the point to you, Vincent, of saying, this has been 24 plus months in the works. In other words, this is not some feature update. It sounds like you've got something really significant here. To your point also in the question is the fact that, things are changing every week in the media landscape, and where and when we're recording this right now, there's definitely the emphasis on re-entering, regrouping, going back to the office, whatever you want to call that. So there's a lot of a pivot away from now at this point in the media landscape of, everything COVID and all the reporters like shifting to that and all that good stuff. So I don't think this person should be too alarmed.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to be now, maybe it's not going to be as big of a splash as maybe from 2 years ago, let's say.
Yeah.
I still think, don't downplay this moment. I think you should be ramping now, though, and start getting your feelers out to talk to as many media people as you can. Get a pulse, get a check. This is where your relationships are hopefully really coming into play. So you can hop on a phone call and say, look, listen, here's what's really going on. To be transparent, it's taken us this much time. Hey, reporter friend, I know you covered this beat and everything. Is this something you're interested in? Would you be wanting to look at that? Get a gut pulse, because then that's third party information you could relay back up to your executives and your team. So let's say if you talk to 8, 10 of these media folks and they're all like, yeah, no way. Can't you see the world's on fire? Okay, well, that's helpful information for you to relay versus you trying to say, oh, I'll just try to do everything I can. And then you hear crickets or anything else. And then now, as I like to say, I don't like surprises unless it's puppy dogs or flowers. So no surprises here. Like, do your work to get ahead of this and get feedback from the media. Obviously, your friendlies, your people that so that you know the landscape you're currently dealing with.
Exactly. And just saying that you've worked on this, like it's been 2 years that you work on this.
Yeah. Say that. For people who are in the industry who follow this beat, they're probably going to understand the significance of it, is my thought. Well, Vincent, let's go into our last question here. Here we go. Dear Bamf, I'm feeling a bit uninspired. I'm hearing and seeing all kinds of startups working on climate change, robots that help keep people safe, healthcare startups that are frankly saving people's lives. And I'm at an agency that solely represents some pretty niche insurance and fintech brands that pretty much help people get rich or squeeze out a few more dollars of profit. What should I do? Search for another job right now in the midst of COVID? My agency has been relatively stable, so I'm still thankful that I have my job. Still, I can't stop thinking about getting to a place where the work I do will seem to matter a lot more.
Well, I totally understand this person. And to some extent, I even feel for you because, when you work in VC, you kind of live in an ivory tower most of the time, and especially during a pandemic. So I do feel guilty some days about having a safe job. So first, I'm an optimistic person, and I would advise you to quit the second you feel that it's not right for you. But I also get that being a marketer in the hunt for a job right now is not what you want to do. My message for this person and to everyone that is not having a job that is on climate change, and it was even something before COVID, I can see myself talking about my job and having people be like, oh, you work in finance, you make rich people richer. What's the point, basically? But the most important part is that you are needed for your current job. You don't know what the future holds, uncertain times and so on. But you keep your press fryers and outlet going, for companies that are also companies. This is the thing also. It's they have a real purpose. Of course, they don't save, the planet, because it's not the core business, but still you can change some bits and tweak the business a bit so it can be more meaningful. So my advice will be for you to kind of find a way internally to kind of engage with different. If you actually feel uncomfortable right now, not doing anything about climate change or, keeping people safe and health tech, just do something about it, but internally. You don't need to always reinvent the wheel. And this is also something I say to a lot of people or even marketers, that want to be investors or want to be partners in the VC fund or want to be CEOs or founders. I'm like, guys, we need everyone. We cannot all become an entrepreneur.
This is so true, Vincent. What a good quote. We need everybody.
Yeah. So basically you're needed for your current job. You do it properly and do not reinvent the wheel. Just try to change, tweak it a little bit, have fun.
Yeah. I think there's something beautiful to this advice, and we don't know, how old this person is or what's going on. I mean, I think it's safe to say all of us are a little uninspired to some extent right now. Very natural to feel that. I love the fact or the notion, Vincent, you're throwing out there of saying, hey, what can you do internally? Also, what can you do external to your job? Is there some other way that you can explore in any volunteer level, virtually, of course, right now, that can ignite your passion and maybe make you inspired in some other ways? In other words, it's not, oh my God, I have to change my job right now. Maneuver and see what else is going on here. What were you going to say, Vincent? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say invest in relationships inside and outside. You know, like there are a lot of people out there or inside your company that you're maybe unaware of that need your help right now on something.
Yeah, like maybe this person could do some volunteer work, nonprofit work for something that is more to their heartstrings. Like if you want to do something that's in health tech or in climate change, something like that, maybe you can give a bit of your time to that, you know, external to your agency. But then also, and we don't really know the context of the agency to see how maybe progressive they are, but is it possible to see, hey, what if we did some work? I know, you know, we've done this before at BAM. What if we did some work that was for a nonprofit? Maybe it's a fintech company that supports nonprofits that are in, you know, health tech, for example, that is looking at saving lives or something like that. Is there any way that you can use the agency's resources and momentum, let's say, and do expand a bit in this nonprofit realm, if that's something you want to do, or in something more inspiring? Possible, we don't know, but I think the big thing here for me is that just not, you need to get a new job. That doesn't need to be the end all be all here.
And even like, I know how hard it is to work in an agency, and the partnership model basically is always pretty hard. But like also doing some housekeeping internally, and I know it's a big topic and we can maybe talk about it for ages, but you know, like the internal comms is now the new external comms. If you have time and if you feel a little bit uninspired, just doing some like internal comms good practices, you know, like just make sure that everyone is a brand ambassador out there. You know, even if you're an agency, you also need to be, you know, proud of the agency you work for. And my feeling from the question is that today you don't feel proud right now just because you don't do something around climate change. Well, you can change it and you can do something internally that is meaningful for you and your industry.
So true. Vincent, I love it. Those are all the questions we can solve today. Anything else that you want to chime in on, Vincent?
No, I think that's already a lot to cover. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on this week, Vincent. It's been so fun. Thank you all for listening to Dear BAMF. We'll have another episode next week as usual.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMF, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show is created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Alon. Thank you to our podcast production team at Citizen Recording. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, please write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMF. Don't forget the F. We'll be back next Monday with another episode of Dear BAMF. Until then,